इससे समझाओ।
विन ग्रिप टेक्नोलॉजी कुछ इस तरह सीमेंट को ग्रिप करता है बिल्कुल टाइट।
SRMB TMT चैंपियंस की पसंद।
Hi, it's Norman Koshnik here yet again for extra time on what is now a double header, the 24th and 25th match of this 60-strong tournament, including the playoffs and the IPL. What a magnificent set of days we've had recently, and today won't be any different. We'll be talking predominantly about the second game, but I will highlight the first game. Of course, in Delhi, we have Mumbai Indians playing the Rajasthan Royals. And most pundits would say that Mumbai Indians would be the favourite there, but you never know with Rajasthan Royals. They've had a 12-12 record against these sides, so they could well cause an upset. Unlikely, but could be there. Our second game, of course, is Delhi Capitals versus KKR, which we'll spend more time on, that being an Ahmedabad with a due factor through the Richter scale. Okay, we have two lovely guests. A man that I know very well from Sydney, a fellow Sydneyite, despite being into multiple languages and having so much Indian heritage is not funny, and having his role with the Cricket Network in Australia as well. Gaurav Joshi, welcome.
Hello, Norman. Nice to be on the show. How are you doing?
Very, very well. A little bit chilly, as you know, in Sydney, but we're getting through. Now,
yeah, we're the only ones with jackets on.
Exactly. We're going to wear jackets here. It's incredible. I think the temperature today is in the 40s in either Ahmedabad or Delhi or both. We're also joined by a very regular guest we have from the Bharat Army, a force to be reckoned with. Bharat Army are everywhere and anywhere. They have got incredible coverage throughout the world, having a London base throughout India and even in Australia. Sydney, Australia, they see them all the time. Gil, how are you today?
I'm good. Looking forward to these two games. Hoping that it's a different result for Delhi as opposed to what it was last time. And also hoping that Rajasthan sort of rejig their campaign, because if they lose today, then they'll fall too far behind. Also, if Mumbai lose, as a Delhi fan, you become more comfortable that there is not another team that is breathing down your neck, because the likes of Chennai and RCB already have one more win than Delhi. So you wouldn't want Mumbai to come near or close to Delhi. So two games to look forward to. Hopefully they're good enough games, and they give us some amount of pleasure and respite from the situation that is outside and across the country, because it's really not a great picture to look outside at this point of time. So yeah.
And I will say up front, my heart goes out to the Indians throughout the whole of India. It's devastating, and it's really amongst the world. Let's be honest, it's quite severe. But in particular, Assam have had 3 earthquakes in a 24-hour period. Nilakshi Sharma, who's often on my show, is in the middle of Assam. She's communicated with me. She's had some very much problems there with both her house cracking and a lot of damage. The irony is, when you have an earthquake, you're meant to go outside. With COVID, you're meant to go inside. So the confusion reigns. So we'll certainly have our hearts out for all Indians, whether it be in Assam or any other part of India. But I think the respite or the true shining light is the IPL, and we've seen now that matches, the 24th and 25th match, will provide blockbusters yet again. It's interesting though, Gil, you know from the discussions we've had over many games, the frustrations we've had with some of the games, the unpredictability of a result, where Rajasthan Royals or even SRH have come up with victories when they least expected it. But last night, we certainly had SRH thumped quite comprehensively by CSK, weren't they? And I have a feeling today's two games should follow the same suit. I think that both Delhi Capitals and Mumbai Indians not have to win, but will want to assert their authority. There's a distinct gap occurring between the top 3, almost 4 sides, and distinctly the last 3 or 4 sides. The gap is starting to widen, and after today, I think it'll widen even further. Well, let's see how that pans out that way. From a perspective of Delhi Capitals, though, we certainly are expecting. Well, Rishabh Pant, despite losing the match literally in the last over, they could have easily come out with a victory. There's been a lot of damning comments about Pant's captaincy, but quite frankly, one extra shot and they would have won the game. So it's a very difficult situation. He took a risk with the bowling lineup in terms of the timing of the bowlers. He left the last over perhaps to the wrong bowler, but other than that, I think he's got a lot of admirable traits for such a young captain. But on the other hand, Kolkata Knight Riders have a seasoned captain in Eoin Morgan, who's been very disappointing throughout the series, but has come back in the last match with some vengeance, but not a great deal. Let's see how the new and the old captaincy fares in that second match. Okay, we'll talk a few minutes on the first. With Mumbai Indians, they've been a sleeper, haven't they? They haven't played nearly as well as they should. Gaurav, what's your thoughts on that?
That's just the way Mumbai Indians play the IPL. If you observe, the exception of 2020, and everything in 2020 was an exception. It's just the way they start off. That they're your typical marathon runner who gets into their groove in the final sort of leg of the tournament. And how many situations have we had from 2013 onwards where it's always Mumbai are going to win 7 out of their 8 matches, and they tend to do it. It's the flow. And I think the new venue will help. I think if there's any sort of doubts about Mumbai, it's always when they play on the slow turning pitches, just the way that their lineup is. And I think going to Delhi, which is not supposed to be an exceptional quick pitch, nothing like Mumbai, you just think though, with the smaller boundaries, I think they're still the best power hitting team in the competition. We're yet to see it. I think they're just setting up. I think their season campaigners, they don't panic, and I think the smaller grounds will suit. I think the ball will come onto the bat a little bit more, especially in the first couple of games that they have in Delhi, and I think they'll spring into momentum. And once they get momentum, Norman, they are an incredible hard team to stop. It's just not, I'm saying this, history sort of proves it as well. So big game for them. They've had a few days off. Just speaking to a couple of players, they just want to get in. They're looking forward to it. They needed that break. I think they're ready to go. I expect Mumbai to start their rise in the competition.
All right, so you're not giving Rajasthan Royals any hope?
Well, like you said, they're the most unpredictable team. I mean, Sanju Samson, but can do some incredible things. I mean, he was with Delhi; he knows that ground well as well. But no, Mumbai. Look, all they need is they're a team where everyone scores 25, they'll still win, and they're more that sort of team rather than looking at one star player. I really feel that Mahal has got them in the right mindset at the moment. Just, starting off, it's been a long summer for a lot of these cricketers. I think the few days is going to help. They'll be hard to beat.
Okay. Gil, I know you're very keen to talk about Delhi Capitals, aren't you? I know you're.
No, I'm always keen to talk cricket. It's my favorite team. But yeah,
I never would have known that, Gil. I would never have known it. But the reality is, well, the first game, I think there's a conclusive nature to it. I think that Mumbai Indians will be out to thump Rajasthan Royals, and Rajasthan Royals may try very hard, but they're going to have a lot of trouble. But it's the second game where we have a close situation, I believe. It's a lot closer in the second game than the first game. And more importantly, as we're doing a post-show on the second game, we're going to talk a lot more about that now. KKR, very disappointing. There's been a lot of dissension, I believe, between Brendan McCullum and Eoin Morgan. There's been a distinct opposing views of the way they should play the game. And it's been very vocal on behalf of McCullum. He's been very damning of some of the things which have gone on. Hasn't helped the mood of the team, I must admit. But I think that Eoin Morgan got his act together in the last game and scored a very steady knock. Mind you, it wasn't explosive. It was steady. And I think today he needs more than just being steady to win this match. I think he's going to have to really take charge. And where he bats in the batting order will be pivotal to that as well. Delhi Capitals, well, they're going to be ruining the fact that they lost that last match. They had their opportunities to win it, even though they may not have necessarily deserved to win it. They certainly went very close. And I expect them to come out fighting as well. All right. So we're going to talk a bit about selections and tosses, of course, both matches. Tell me about, Gil, tell me about your thoughts on Delhi Capitals. What do you think? Do they need to change anything from their last match?
See, like you sort of summed it up pretty well when you said that they had the opportunities to win the game, but probably they did not deserve to win the game. I completely agree with you, like I did when they lost to Rajasthan Royals. It just goes on to show the depth that despite not doing a lot of things correctly, they still, go pretty far in the game. Right? If you look at the previous game, there have been a few blunders. One, like I said like I said before the previous game, they probably need to get in Andrik Nokia and not have Steve Smith. They played Steve Smith. They did not complete Amit Mishra's quota of overs. And then, regardless of where you would have bowled Marcus Stoinis to AB de Villiers in the last 5 overs, he would have gone for 15 plus runs. Then, after the third wicket fell, there was a case for a Shimran Hetmyer promotion because there wasn't an off spinner in Bangalore side, so they could have easily promoted him. And then the approach also. I know that Rishabh Pant in the end tried to go for his big ones, but he had put himself under a lot of pressure. Someone like him cannot be 23 runs of 25 balls. You've already put yourself on the back foot. So they did a lot of wrong things, but still managed to get so close. So that sort of talks about the depth. And I'd say a similar thing about Mumbai Indians too. They're not performing up to potential, but still they are getting close. On the other hand, someone like an RCB and Chennai Super Kings, they are firing on all cylinders. So I still feel that Mumbai and Delhi are the better sides, but they need to perform up to their potential. While RCB and CSK are probably punching a little bit above their weight, especially with their bowling, because on good batting pitches, and we have seen this in Wankhede, the CSK bowling was struggling a little bit, but they were still somehow scraping through, which is very important in this format and in this tournament. So it's important the other teams also take a leaf out of their book. As far as Delhi is concerned, I think they genuinely need to get in Andrik Nokia and probably drop Ishant Sharma and bring in Lalit Yadav or Vishnu Vinod at number 3. What bringing in Andrik Nokia does is give you another option to bowl at the death, and with the likes of Eoin Morgan and Andre Russell, who struggle against good fast bowling, especially when it is into the pitch and short of length. It's easier to contain them. Last time also when Delhi were playing KKR in Sharjah, I very categorically remember that at the moment Andre Russell walked in, Shreyas Iyer gave the ball to Andrik Nokia and Kagiso Rabada and gave them 3 overs on the trot. So this is something that they'll have to do. So I genuinely see that change happening. As far as the first game is concerned, Mumbai has always been the better side, but Rajasthan Royals have seemed to have the kryptonite to solve the Mumbai issue. They've had someone like a Shreyas Gopal who bowls well against Mumbai for some reason. I don't know. He's been pretty off color. Then someone like a Jofra is able to restrict Kyron Pollard and Hardik. And then there is Josh Butler who plays Jasprit Bumrah very well. So it's not that Rajasthan Royals are ruled out of this game completely, but they would need special performances from the likes of Josh Butler and Chris Morris. Without that, I don't think they stand a chance.
Very well summarised, Gil. Very well summarised. When we look at this, I trust your word, and I believe in that very much so, that Mumbai Indians and Delhi Capitals are somewhat below at this stage CSK and RCB. And that all comes down to the timing and the momentum. As Gaurav said as well, you slowly build to a crescendo towards the end. We're only in the 24th and 25th match. Are RCB and CSK peaking too early? We'll wait and see. Are Mumbai Indians and the likes of Delhi Capitals measured with their full performances? Delhi Capitals have been involved in a lot of close games, won and lost. To me, that's a great testament for the future of their team as they get closer. We know they've come from last to third to second, potentially first this year with Ricky Ponting at the helm. Gaurav, your thoughts on how you see?
Yeah. Look, I mean, T20 is the nature of the games are just close. I mean, Norman, you speak to a lot of the captains who are you played in the competitions, and they'll say there is a lot of element of luck, and that's why we get so many close matches. That's why we see this is so much different between a Test match and a T20 match, because a top edge is going to go for a 6, an outside edge is going to go to the boundary. That's just the nature of T20 cricket. As far as I think you alluded on a good point, that the fact that teams having close matches just builds them for the later stages of the tournament. And you looked at Rishabh Pant the other day. Perhaps if he gets into the same scenario down the line, I think he will play a little bit differently, or maybe lead up to it. He perhaps do attack. One thing, and then you're well aware of that situation at the Gabba when he was chasing it, even in the Test match. One thing about Rishabh Pant that some of the coaches have said is not to overcomplicate things. He's not your MS Dhoni. When you get 40 runs to be scored of 18 balls. Rishabh Pant is not a guy who'll just say, okay, hang on, that means I need to hit 2 sixes and 3 fours and then I can run rest of them singles. His mind doesn't work in that calculative manner like MS Dhoni's would. His mind would go, okay, well, I need 40, hang on, I get a full toss, I'm pinging this over the cow corner for 6. I think it's a learning curve for a lot of these players. In terms of peaking too early, look, CSK are incredible. Whenever they've done well in a tournament, they've always started well and they've remained up the top. So there's this sort of this fluency to the game. They don't really like to rotate a lot of players. That's one thing you realize with Mumbai Indians. Even if they start losing games, you don't see them drastically, shifting moving 3 players out for, like, if you even look at 2020 where they're having an exception season, I think it was only until their guaranteed qualification of guaranteed first or second spot that they changed sort of 7 or 8 players. And so the continuity, what it does is actually ensures that the players know their roles better and better. And currently, you probably see that's why Mumbai has struggled. They're getting, I think, to the 15th over mark pretty much in the situation that they want to be. When I say, around that sort of 6 wickets in hands or sort of 7 wicket in hands, all they've missed is a Pollard or a Hardik Pandya burst, which is, those 10 balls and scoring 25. 15 runs, especially where they've been playing in a situation like Chennai, have been gold dust. I mean, they would have won all their games. So, I mean, picking is an important thing. It just, some people just, it's like a sport. Some people just like to be up front and just lead that way. CSK are that. RCB, things have started well, but, let's not forget, we're into games 23 and 24. There's a long way to go. I mean, we're all talking about, Glenn Maxwell's form and, Kohli and De Villiers. And De Villiers should probably continue, but we've got a long way to go in this tournament. So I think that's quite important. In terms of Eoin Morgan, it's interesting. It's just not in the IPL. If you just look at his form against India in the T20 series leading into the IPL, he didn't have a great tournament either. And you just wonder, he's being questioned. Does he want to be the captain of England for 2022? And he's like, well, let's see how I feel. And I reckon there's a bit of doubts in Eoin Morgan's mind, whether if he's good enough, if he's doubting himself, because certainly in terms of his captaincy and his batting, there seems to be some doubts there. And I think you brought up a fantastic point between McCullum and Morgan. I mean, they should be going hand in hand because Morgan, as we know, he encourages, him and Bayliss were exceptional because they are happy with sort of the team getting rolled for 100 as long as they keep that aggressive mindset. But what's happened now is there seems to be a bit of mix, which it's hard to believe with McCullum, who's always got that mindset. So you wonder if there's other voices around the support staff that's probably playing a bit of influence on there. But it's a huge game for KKR. I've always said KKR's form is dictated by Andre Russell. If Andre Russell's not going well, KKR are dipping, which is what we've seen. Andre Russell's the key man. If he goes well, they start going up.
Thanks, That's very well said.
I want to add something to what Gaurav said. I agree that Morgan's mindset has always been to stick to a process regardless of the result. Like, if you want to play aggressive cricket, so be it. We'll take the losses. And this is something which he said after the first ODI versus India as well, that we'd rather lose this way rather than, play in another manner and lose by 10 or 20 runs. I suspect what he's probably realizing is that maybe he doesn't have the players who can follow that method of going for an all-out approach. Maybe a Nitish Rana and Shubman Gill and Rahul Tripathi do not fit into that kind of mentality because they're not comfortable going out, from ball one. And someone like a Rahul Tripathi still can, but someone like Shubman Gill, who's not played a lot of T20, has played more of conventional cricket, the 4-day Ranji Trophy, Test cricket, the A system. He may not be, very comfortable with that sort of an approach. That I cannot do it, because whenever he's tried doing it, if you look back at the game versus RCB in Chennai, he did start well, but he couldn't continue keeping it up. And he did start well against Mumbai as well in the game that they collapsed. He was 33 of 24 balls. And then when he started to go for another six versus Rahul Chahar, he got dismissed, and that sort of triggered their collapse. I think somewhere that loss is still hurting them, and that loss is still playing on the back of their minds. They do not trust their whole batting order so as to take them out of a lump or a situation. So and also they need to figure out who their real bowlers are. I think there is still no clarity as to who's going to be their third pacer, whether it's going to be Kamlesh Nagarkoti, whether it's going to be Prasidh Krishna, or is it going to be Shivam Mavi. And this conundrum has been on for 2 months. So for a setup like KKR, which is very professional in its ways, and they keep talking of trusting the process, it's something which is a letdown, honestly.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Well said.
Norman, I just wanted to make it's a perfect point made by Gill, and especially about Shubman Gill. I mean, do KKR see him as a blaster at the top, or do they see him as an anchor? Right now, he's not doing either. And what I mean by an anchor is if he bats 15 overs, generally, if you look at all this, like the data that all the analysts look at, if you look back 15 overs, even if that guy's got consistency and say scored 80 of 60 balls, that's fine, right? But you need to have consistency. If you're a blaster, you probably don't need consistency, but you need to give that rapid start. Right now, I think Shubman Gill's just caught in the middle, and that means Rahul Tripathi is sort of what role does he have? Does he open the batting? Does he bat in the middle? But Dinesh Karthik and Andre Russell. I mean, there seems to be no cohesion. So you're absolutely right, Gil. I totally 100% agree that whatever roles that they have, and like you said, Morgan had everyone buying to that when he plays for England, and probably buying into it is one thing, but you've got to have players. I mean, we all know England bat all the way down to 7, 8, and 9, but KKR don't. So how do you fit that bill? So absolutely spot on with that one.
The reality is, and I've said it from day one, teams have to fire in their top three. One of the top three, even sometimes two of the top three, have to be there for the long term. Gill certainly hasn't done that. In fact, their batting line has failed too often at the top of the order. They've relied upon the likes of Russell and even Pat Cummins of late to come to the fore. They can't do that throughout the rest of the tournament. They have to start firing. Gill has to have a big one, or any of the opening three have to have a big one. They really do have to set the platform. That's where, on the other hand, the likes of Delhi Capitals have that capability with Shikhar Dhawan, Pant early in the order, even Prithvi Shaw of late. They've got a lot more firepower at the top. Mind you, that they lack towards the end of their innings. So it's a bit of a topsy-turvy situation with both those sides. The reality is that I think that KKR, this is their day of reckoning. If they lose today, they really are going to find it extremely hard with some 6 of their last 8 games to get anywhere close to the top 4. Their chances are dimmer by the day, and I think this is a crucial match. Eoin Morgan's been in somewhat better form, but he needs to stand up. So does his openers. There's a need for a better start. They can't rely on Russell, that's for sure. On the Delhi
sorry, Norman, I was going to ask you. So do you think that KKR will be the first one to replace their captain in this IPL?
Great question. The reality is it's a matter of who would they replace him with is my question. That's where the uncertainty is for that side. You could argue that Dave Warner was under some threat throughout the last, and obviously the obvious change there would be Kane Williamson. That's more of an obvious change. This is a need for a change, but who will be his replacement is the question. I think they're going to give Eoin Morgan a bit of a long bow. His last innings gave him some time, but today, if he fails today as a team and as a captain, I'm always talking about, Gaurav, that we've seen the great social media platforms of all 8 teams. Very glossy, lots of cakes being eaten, lots of pinball machines being played, but we're seeing very little of the reality. The time we see reality is when the bench is in front of us. We see the dynamics of a bench. We see a Dave Warner not talking with Williamson and Bairstow to one corner, or you see the great synergy between Coley and, say, Dan Christian. When you look at the Eoin Morgan bench, there is a great deal of silence amongst them. There's not a lot of talk, which concerns me. And you watch today how those dynamics, whereas when Rishabh, Pant and Ponting are around, there's a lot of talk. There's a lot of support going on in a verbal sense. And that activity on the bench gives you a true reflection of what we don't see on social media. which is heavily towards the positive. Gil, you know my topics here. We've talked about this many a time. What's your thoughts?
I was just coming to it. Even Brendan McCullum's notebook is out. Is not to be seen, which was always a feature of the KKR dugout last time. So yeah, of course. In fact, I was just coming to this. Things seem a lot more messy with SRH than what they do with KKR, because after the Delhi Capitals game, Warner came out and said that it was not his decision to drop Manish Pandey. It was down to the selectors. Yesterday, he said it was not his decision why Kane Williamson was not batting at 4. So, it's becoming a very similar situation to what it is with the Punjab Kings and Delhi Capitals, where I've obviously felt that coach is playing the predominant role and the captain is just an executionary of the entire tactics and processes. And it just brings me down to something that I've always been apprehensive about. That is, never have an overseas captain, because teams can deal with a captain that is not performing or is out of form when he has that class and capability. But when that captain is an overseas player, he's not only taking up one spot in the 11, he's taking a very important overseas spot which you pay heavily for, invest a lot in, and you expect a lot out of him. A lot of things in the SRH setup can be sorted if someone like a Jason Roy replaces David Warner at the top, because he was looking, he did not even look like David Warner yesterday. And if you look at even the last season, his strike rate was down to 134 last season, when he's been predominantly throughout his career a player who strikes at more than 140. And this season he's been striking at less than 110. So of course, I mean, that is something that you can get even an Abhishek Sharma to do. Play 15 balls, score 25, and do the job, and then leave it for someone else. So yeah, a lot of issues for SRH out there, and I think the good thing or the blessing in disguise for SRH could be that it is happening before the mega auctions, because they've been hiding a lot of their issues, because they've known that they don't have an express fast bowler. There was no reason for them to retain a Khalil Ahmed, a Siddharth Kaul, and a Basil Thampi. They still did it. There was no reason for them to retain a Manish Pandey, who's been underwhelming for them. Even if they wanted to keep him, they could have released him and got him at a lower price. When Mitchell Marsh got injured, they could have signed an express pacer. They had Billy Stanley, who didn't get any game. They had Mohammad Nabi, who was not getting a game last season, but they still went on to sign Mujibur Rahman. So a lot of things that they are suffering from is perhaps their own doing, because of poor retentions and then poor auction strategy in the first place. Now it's just that with poor form of key players, and with the likes of Bhuvneshwar being injured, Natarajan being injured, Warner not being the same, it's getting massively exposed. Because make no mistake, over the last season, this team has been carried by 3 or 4 individuals. In 2019, they qualified only with 6 wins, which was the lowest for any team. So they've not had successful seasons. They've been lucky, and have had 2-3 Masihas taking them out.
As you're speaking there, Gil, I thought about what you said. The so-called top 4 teams, let's call them top 4 teams, have all got Indian captains. The bottom 4, except for obviously Samson, have so-called non-Indian captains. Intriguing that you say that. It's a very relevant point. I think there's a lot of validity to that comment. Now, I've just quickly noticed on the first game, Rajasthan Royals are in a huddle. They're quite intense, overly intense probably, and there are no new caps been giving out. No toss has been given there yet. We'll wait for that coming up very shortly.
No, Norman, sorry, I just wanted to go to firstly about David Warner. I mean, David Warner is, you talked about his strike rate, Gil. David Warner's strike rate has been sort of, I won't say dipping, but he's been batting in a different mode, whether that's in any format of the game. David Warner is no longer your 20-ball 40 player. David Warner is a guy, and if you look at his record from the 3, what he's missing this year is the consistency. David Warner is your sort of 60-ball 80 player, but he'll do that 7 out of 14 games, and that's what his role is. He is no longer a bludgeoner of a cricket ball. He relies a lot, and he's done so much fitness work over the last couple of years. I think he runs around the huge luxury property that's near Norman's place in Sydney as well. But he just, he's worked his game basically on that. So that's the important thing on Warner. The other thing I want to get to, and I think this is a bit of a concern as we go deeper in the tournament, you talked about the situation right now, And if a team or a player is out of form, given this bubble life, and a lot of these players, and Chupan Gill is one of them, I think they've just. I think sometimes it's getting to a lot of the players because you just haven't had that freedom. And when I mean freedom, I don't expect them to go out because you can't do that in the IPL. But I think that's playing on, from David Warner, anyone who loses form, teams, and you just worry that, like a Rajasthan Royals or a Sunrisers, if they don't make enough runs or if they fall behind with still 4 games to go, you really worry about the mental side of the things for a lot of the players being in the bubble. That's my huge concern. Let's hope that those teams down the bottom, like Rajasthan and Sunrisers, aren't at that state. And perhaps, possibly, that's why with those captains who are overseas, maybe it's something to do with that factor. Of course, tactics is a huge factor, but let's not forget cricketers are humans. A personality, it plays a big role in captaincy, and you just wonder if, given what's happening around at the moment, whether that's playing on their mind as well. And I'm assuming, while I'm fishing what I'm saying, that Norman probably has the toss news, Norman.
I certainly do. Mumbai Indians have chosen to bowl. I love the way they say chose to field. No one chooses to field. You bat or bowl. So Mumbai Indians actually chosen to bowl. And interestingly enough, Ishan Kishan is actually out. And they've brought in Nathan Coulter-Manal into the side, which is intriguing. That's an interesting change to their dynamics, I would argue. But yeah, I think they probably think they need an extra bowler. And of course, it's more of a pace-friendly pitch, what Delhi appears to be. They call it a green top, yes, that was a bit of an stretch, but yeah, it was more of a pace-friendly pitch. Certainly green tops, as far as Gaurav and I would talk about, would be very different. So yeah, Mumbai Indians have elected to bowl, and I think that tells me a lot. I think they're quite confident about chasing, being somewhat of a day match. That allows Mumbai to be in control. They'll probably squeeze Rajasthan Royals and have a total which they can manage quite comfortably. I think that's almost sealed the deal on that game, in my opinion. Rajasthan Royals appear to be unchanged. But yeah, I think Ishan Kishan has been a bit quiet and perhaps needs to get himself together for the future matches. But again, it's too early. It's way too early. 24th and 25th match, it's way too early. Yep. But the top 4 are forming. I'd be very, very shocked if the top 3 as it stands now, CSK, RCB and DC, actually do move out of that position. Mumbai Indians, you would expect to, but they've got to get their act together today. They've got to thump. Teams are going to start to be 1 or 2 wickets down when they pass scores. The top order's got to dominate more and more. They can't rely on their low order teams, players to actually perform every single time. That's a mistake, and that's one of the problems KKR have, as we've already stated. So at this point in time, I can read Mumbai Indians team very quickly. Sharma and De Kock, Sky, then you've got Hardik Pandya, Pollard, Quinol still on the side there. You've got the likes of Nathan Coulter-Manal going in batting at number 7, very high in the order. Jayant Yadav. They've slashed Adam Mill. Now, why have they done that? They've got Jayant Yadav and Adam Mill slash. That's interesting. Rahul Chahar, Bumrah, and Trent Bolt. So I'm not sure that implies there's a 12th player there. That doesn't make any sense. I think we've got an actual team that's not quite fully written there, but they have a slash. So, all right. I don't think Adam Mill's on the side. I think that would have been noted. If Adam Mill was the side, they would have announced that. It looks like Nathan Coulter-Manal first.
Adam Milner cannot play because he'll become the 5th overseas player.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but I'm just reading off what I've got in front of me. They've slashed him, which is silly. So clearly that's going to be Yadav in the place. They're batting at number 8. So with Bolt, Bumrah, Chahar, and Coulter-Manal, pretty solid bowling line. The Pandya is there as well. So Mumbai Indians going to struggle. Sorry, not struggle. They're going to win, and they're going to make Rajasthan Royals struggle. Rajasthan Royals team is Butler. Jaiswal is opening. Samson and Dubey, Miller, Tuatia, Parag, Morris, Munadkat, and then Sakaraya, and then obviously Rahman at the end there. So their team surprisingly settled for a team that probably really need to win this. Let's see if their tactics work. But in terms of the match, with Mumbai Indians, she's chosen the field. Has been bowled. I think that's pretty much sealed the deal. Like, that's going to be a pretty dominant situation for them today, and they'll bowl pretty well. They could have easily handled bowling last as well. The reality is they've got a great side. Maybe there's a slight doubt about them bowling at the end. Maybe there's a slight doubt there because Bumrah and Trent Bolt were a little bit off the previous matches. They haven't been in their best of form, but we know they're going to come back, even if they've been slightly off. All right, so go, Gil.
Yeah, I think they've bought in Kolkata Knight because they realized that the Indian batting in the Rajasthan Royals setup isn't very comfortable with pace. So the plan would be to say sort of bounce out the likes of Dubey, Tewatia, Jaiswal, using Kolkata Knight, and then keep Bumrah for the death when he has to bowl only to the likes of Samson, Miller, and Joss, and then you have Bolt who will try and extract whatever swing there is, and it's good that they are bowling first, because in the second innings I don't think they would have got any swing, because it's a day game, it's not even a day-night game, and Delhi, although it will be a faster pitch than Chennai, but it's not going to give you a lot of movement. The only way I see Rajasthan troubling Mumbai over here is that if they post 190 or 200, else it will be game that will be finished by the 18th, 19th over of the second innings.
Yeah, let's not forget, Norman, that this is the start of the leg in Delhi as well. And generally what we find that the pitches, we have so many games that what the curators like to do is leave a little bit of moisture around the square, because they don't want the square to get too dry, too rough. A few games coming up, the heat's extreme, so there might be something in there early. So good decision to bowl first, and you never know. Like you might get, like Gil said, Kolkata Knight can also swing the ball. So if they see a bit of swing, I think with this Rajasthan Royals team, I wouldn't be surprised to see Bumrah bowl couple up the front. I reckon Rohit Sharma and Mumbai Indians like to do that. If they see a bit of strength up the top of the order, which I think it is, you might see Bumrah bowl. It's almost like you're the boss. Let's get you going. Let's knock over a couple early. Bolt does one. Let's get them 3 for 20 and then see where they go.
Very good point. I need to get your point, Gaurav, on both Meredith and Richardson and their performances of Punjab Kings. They are on the outer, aren't they? They have bowled pretty ordinarily in the first matches, and they've been given a bit of a wide berth from playing. What's your thoughts on those two?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, it's the IPL. It's not something people just come and feel that it's easy. Look, they've been playing in Mumbai, which is a nightmare. I mean, you look at some of the numbers that the video analysts have and the data scientists have now in IPL dugouts, and if you go and say maybe 8.5 and over in Wankhede Stadium, that's considered pretty good. So I think that, and the pace on the board, does it really help? There's a lot of debates. You still got to get the Yorkers right. I think Jai Richardson, he's always that type of bowler. You'll see Jai Richardson having a really good day, or sometimes he can get sort of carted around. I think he'll come. I think he's a really quick learner, though, Norman. I think he'll come into this tournament. Riley Meredith, he's got pace. Maybe there's different ways. I think matchups are so easy. Whenever they come up against, say, KKR, Andre Russell goes to bat, he bowls. I think they probably need to use him in that manner.
Fair points. But I think the Nathan Coulter-Nile's form in Australia wasn't exactly fantastic in the BBL. I wouldn't have, or in that whole time prior to this tournament. So he's come in rather late now. I think maybe we'll see how he goes, but he hasn't been in great form either. So I'm interested to see how he goes today as well. All right. Quick decision. Who's going to win this match between Mumbai Indians and Rajasthan Royals before we move on to the next match?
I'm going Mumbai.
Gil?
I'll go Rajasthan Royals.
Why are you doing that? You're being nasty. What is this? You're trying to
because if Mumbai lose, then Delhi still stay comfortable. So just purely because of that reason.
Okay.
But yeah,
all right.
10 times out of 8 to 9 times out of 10, this Mumbai side will beat Rajasthan. I just want today to be that one time where they don't.
But that's deliberately to advance Delhi Capitals. I know your tactic. I know what's going on there. I know what's going on. All right, I'm going to say Mumbai Indians. I can't imagine them losing this match. They've got a thump, in my opinion, Rajasthan Royals. All right, we'll go on to the next match. This is more of a match which I think will be significantly closer. Delhi Capitals have just coming off a very poor, a close loss KKR need to win. They've had a victory as well of late. What's your take on this game, Gaurav? Who's going to win?
You know what? I reckon it's going to be the Andre Russell day. I reckon he's going to come good. I reckon he's going to do something special today.
And that means?
Well, KKR are going to win. Because remember, Andre does well, KKR win. Andre doesn't do well, KKR lose. Simple.
That's a hell of a lot of pressure on Russell, isn't it? Okay. Gil, do I need to ask you who's going to win? Do I need to ask you?
No. Yeah, I think I think Delhi will bring in Nokia for sure. There's a possibility that Amit Mishra might sit out, and Steve Smith will have to go out because one overseas player is coming in, and then Lalit Yadav would come in. The reason why I say this, because if you look at the KKR batting lineup, they do play well against spin. The likes of Gill, Tripathi, Rana, Morgan, Dinesh Karthik, even Andre Russell, they play spin very well, and Amit Mishra is not the kind of spinner who can bowl defensive lines very well. He's someone who's very conventional and can deceive the batsman in the air. But with someone like Andre Russell, even if he gets deceived in the air, he has enough power to still clear the boundary line. So I'm not sure if Amit Mishra is going to be that valuable on this pitch. So better to go with another pacer. And when you have Avesh, Nokia, and Rabada, you have the resources to sort of tie down Russell. If he still plays well, then you have to take your hat off and say, well played, but you still have to prepare in a certain manner to stop him.
So with the loss of Ashwin, and his decision to opt out of playing for the rest of the tournament, they have enough spin power, don't they, in that side to still continue beyond this match with the likes of Mishra for sure. So that they lost significantly by not having Ashwin in the squad.
Yes, because they need someone in the power play. So I think Ashwin can bowl different ways, and he can bowl on different pitches. That's the great strength of Ravi Ashwin. So I think that's a huge blow for Delhi. No doubt about it. So yeah, I think he's going to be hard to replace. I think we've already seen in the middle order, lack of Shreyas Iyer is really hurting them. And with Ashwin going home, I think later on in the tournament, it might be those two factors why they probably fall short of not winning the IPL. But long way to go.
Absolutely. I haven't spoken to Gaurav. Who's your prediction at this very early stage for the overall tournament? Who do you have a flavour for?
I still think Mumbai Indians will win.
Okay. Gil, we know it's Delhi Capitals. And I've got to introduce Gaurav. You haven't actually seen my crystal ball. It's a chocolate milkshake, yes, but it also is a crystal ball. And it said Delhi Capitals to me from the start, and I still feel Delhi Capitals are going to sneak their way into this. I believe it's going to be a side that hasn't won. So that somewhat knocks out CSK and MI. That puts RCB and Delhi Capitals. Let's hope it's that way. It'd be good to see a team win for the first time. All right, guys.
Absolutely.
Tremendous discussion. Gaurav, it's like having an old glove there coming back. I'm putting my old glove on talking to you. We've talked about the venues for too long in Sydney. And Gil, you are fantastic. Fantastic. Your beard, everything's fantastic about you. I wouldn't go too far, but let's keep it to that. Thanks, guys, for your time. I think we've had a great discussion here today. We're looking forward to an incredible doubleheader. So let's enjoy this and sit back and have a cup of tea and watch these great games and come back post both matches and talk about how the games pan out. But yes, we've pretty much looked at the way, and I think it's going to be pretty decisively, in my opinion, Mumbai Indians. Gil's throwing in a curly one. But I think in the second game, DC, come on, let's go DC. All right, guys. Thanks, guys. Enjoy your time. This is Norman Koshnik for Extra Time. We'll see each other very shortly again at the post-match. Thanks, guys.